This video contains discussions and depictions of Chapter 1178 and 1179 of One Piece, the Elbaf arc, and will most likely have spoilers for the entire story. If you're not caught up, add this video to your watch later playlist and check it out another time. Just in case you've been living under a rock, IMU has finally been revealed after 8 long years. These past 2 chapters have been the craziest releases of my time as being a One Piece creator, and I have so many thoughts, so I wanted to make a full video about both chapters and what I think this means for the future of Elbaf, the arc after this one, and the rest of the One Piece story as a whole. I'm going to assume if you're watching this video at this point, you've read both chapters and are completely caught up, so I'm mostly going to be skipping around to the parts of these chapters that I find most important and that I have the most to say about. Starting with 1178, as Loki is squaring off with IMU/Gunko, IMU is starting to piece together who Loki is and that he is the giant that was taking out government ships while cloaked in mist. When Luffy catches back up to the fight, IMU's shrouded form sprouts from Gunko and uses a diabolical covenant Domi Reversi to flip Loki and Luffy against each other, but they pull the tentacles out of them with no effect. IMU says, "As I expected, ye are both," and doesn't finish their sentence, so something about who Loki and Luffy are makes them immune to the Domi Reversi. The only thing I can think of for why it wouldn't have worked is that Luffy and Loki are too strong for IMU to turn with Domi Reversi while not being there in person. Another reason could be this theory that's been going around since the God Valley flashback. I don't know who started it, so I apologize for that, but the gist of it is that Domi Reversi can only work on people who were born on the island they are on when they are hit by it. It has to do with the translation of Domi Reversi being return to home or home reversed. All the people we've seen reversed by Domi Reversi have been people native to the island it's occurring on. Dory, Bragi, and the giants on Elbaf, as well as Zebek on God Valley. But based on this theory, Loki should have been turned, so there must be more requirements that need to be met for the move to work. If I had to pick one, I think I'd go with my idea of IMU being too weak to pull off Reversi while being in that state, but it all depends on what IMU actually plans on doing to Loki and Luffy in chapter 1180, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To me, it looks like IMU is deep in thought and kind of lets Luffy hit them with a Gum Gum Dawn Gatling as Loki returns to his normal form and blasts them with a Niflheim with Ragnar that freezes Gunko and IMU. We get a lot of updates on the rest of Elbaf during this chapter, but the only thing that caught my eye is this interaction with Chopper and the victims of Domi Reversi. Zoro and his band of giants are trying to deal fatal blows to the giants that have been possessed to return them to normal, but Chopper in his monster point was able to just hit them and cure them from their demonic powers, as he puts it. This is of course massive Chopper upscale, but I'm also really liking the idea of Chopper possibly having a different fruit than what we originally thought. I always thought the normal human fruit was a little weird and it never felt right for what he was actually able to do with it. And it just kept getting weirder as the story progresses when we see the human fruit model Buddha from Sengoku in Marineford, and of course the massive reveal of Luffy's fruit being the human fruit model Nika. If Oda wanted to go the god fruit route, I'd imagine it would be the forest god that was mentioned on Skypiea, but honestly we don't have much to go off of for what this god actually did. The idea I like more is that Chopper's fruit is the mushroom that was said to be able to cure any disease that he was looking for on Drum Island. We see the IMU Dake mushroom, which is the one Chopper found that ended up being poisonous, but here Luke said that many mushrooms grow only on Drum Island, and that some could possibly be used for cures to diseases. Chopper was looking for the wrong mushroom, but it could have been the one he ate long ago, the supposed human fruit. Drum Island had a reputation for having the best doctors in the world before Wapol showed up, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that this sort of devil fruit would take root on that island. When we get back to Team Luffy, he's in grandpa mode begging for food, but we see Summer's mechanical heart for the first time, which I have much to say about later, but we also see Imu disappear from the block of ice that Ragnar froze Gunko in, and when they appear again in Pangaea Castle, they alert the Gorosei that they will be leaving the Holy Land for a while. This was a painful wait for chapter 1179, but we are finally here. I'm not covering chapter 1177 in this video, but Usopp really did rage bait Imu to come down from the Holy Land for the first time in 800 years. That has to be a feat for my boy, right? He said if you trying to rule over Elbaf, you better come get it in blood, and I'm not gonna lie, that's exactly what Imu is about to do, bro. GG. 1179 begins with a squabble between the Gorosei, with Garling acting as a sort of mediator, but low-key this shit all started because of him. He says one disaster after another, and it all started from the reappearance of Nika. Like his son isn't the one who stole the fruit and brought it to Joy Boy 2.0. Anyway, after arguing, Imu tells them that this was all preordained and it started long before Luffy, while showing basically every way they've fucked up in the last 800 years. Zebek saying he'd be back, letting Roger kick off the Great Pirate Era, the birth of Shirahoshi aka Poseidon. When it shows Shanks, it says they stole the fruit, so I guess they didn't know who did it, but like, come on bro, who else would it be? And the rise of Blackbeard and Luffy. They then leave the Holy Land in the hands of the Gorosei and transport themselves to Elbaf. Back on Elbaf, we see Zoro with his crew, and we get a close-up of Summer's steel heart. I know Kid and Law are cheesing somewhere, knowing that they are now the keys to defeating these immortal demons. Well, I mean, they don't know shit, they're both half dead, but you know what I mean. The most exciting part about this is that I feel like this confirms both of them are coming back for the final war. I know we all mostly assumed that they would be back based on how important they were in Wano and how badly they went out against two Yonkos, but this weakness of the Gods Knights and possibly even the Gorosei and Imu makes them essential. On this same page, we see the block of ice Gunko is in beginning to crack, even though on the next page, Loki says Ragnar is the only one who can melt the ice. But he does use the word melt, while also saying that Ragnar freezing her won't kill her, so she will most definitely be back for the fight, and I'm excited to see her keep interacting with Brook, which has been one of my favorite side stories in Elbaf right now. Nami is the first person to detect something is wrong, and Imu is arriving by, I'm assuming, a change in the weather. Afterwards, massive pillars of black flames appear all across Elbaf as a giant pentagram envelops the sky over a rust castle. The trees and houses in Elbaf sprout faces and start chanting what I can only assume are called the drums of oppression. That shit would be hilarious if that was the actual name, but I'm sure this rhythm that accompanies Imu's presence will get a proper name in the future. Making inanimate objects move is very Big Mom-esque, of course. I'm sure that's what most people thought when they first saw this. I genuinely did not know what to make of this. My only idea is that it could be the effects of the black flames, because they are all around the trees and houses and they've all partially turned black. This happens to the surrounding area before Imu even appears, so it's clearly not something Imu intentionally did, so this is my best shot at what it could be. When they finally appear on the abyss in Elbaf, a massive blast of Conqueror's Haki fills Elbaf, knocking out the children and a couple of others. I honestly thought it would knock out a lot of the lower end giants as well. Like, you're telling me Hyruden withstood Imu's Haki? Gear 2 jet pistol victim Hyruden? Are we serious? And I'm not gonna lie, Joy Boy's hockey knot knocked out way more people on Egghead with his shit, man. I don't know, Emu's getting hockey mogged as far as I'm concerned. Inside the throne room, we see Emu clearly shaken up from being brought to Elbaf, and they seem to cough up some blood or like black sludge, I don't know. I was trying to think of a reason why Emu would be in pain for leaving Marijois when my girlfriend had an idea that I really liked. She said that it could be because of Emu's proximity to Luffy and the Nika fruit. I really like the idea of Emu having this inherent weakness to Luffy's abilities, and it would add another element to the world government wanting to seal the fruit away. Not only to make sure no one ever awakens it again, but to make sure Emu has no weakness, but I'm not too sure that this is truly the cause of it. What I came up with after thinking about it for a while is that Emu's power is slowly dwindling over the hundreds of years of them being in power for so long. When they give covenants to other people, they said that this comes at a cost to them as well. So what if this additional power they give out is taking a piece of their own power to give to their subordinates? So now that they've been using it on hundreds of people for centuries now, they're running out of time and energy. I believe Emu is set on having the Mother Flame replicated, not only to power the ancient weapons, but to power themselves as well. After this, it looks like they shed their shadow form, and it blasts more Haki out, destroying the roof of a rust castle. Seeing this, I think that Emu's shadow form isn't a silhouette, but an actual form of emus that leaves them invulnerable and allows them to shapeshift, but diminishes their fighting power, hence why they would shed it to fight. I think this is a form caused by their devil fruit instead of just being a way to hide their appearance by Oda, because when they sprouted out from Gunko, all the shots they took from Loki and Luffy did nothing. But the best evidence I have to support this is that in chapter 1163, the future king of the pirates, his equal Garp, Zebek, and 3 future Yonkos hit them with their best attacks all at once, and it didn't even leave a scratch on Emu, and it didn't affect them for the rest of their time on God Valley. But during this, they didn't really fight back. They mostly used the tentacles they used for Domi Reversi to attack. So I feel as if Emu uses Domi Reversi to make more possessed soldiers that do the fighting, so Emu doesn't have to leave their shadow form. Finally, at the top of a rust castle, on a pillar that survived their destruction, Emu rests with all their glory. The way the panel is set up, it looks like they're sitting on top of a pyramid, which I thought was kind of interesting, Illuminati, hidden underworld kind of vibes, you know? And then we get the name card. Creator of the world government, one of the first 20, power, the devil's fruit. King of the world, Saint Nerona Emu. I know Oda's pen was on fucking fire at that desk, drawing this peak character design and then calling their fruit the Devil's Fruit. The Devil's Fruit with the apostrophe S representing ownership was the perfect way to do it. When I read the fan translation, it was Akuma no Mi, which just translates to Devil Fruit, but I think this hits way harder. This clearly shows that Emu is in fact the creator of the Devil Fruits. Creating these inhuman, godlike abilities and making the user not be able to swim seems like the easiest trade-off ever. Anyone would take that offer, but it's perfect for Emu, because as we saw on Egghead, all of the previous world's history and all of the wrongdoings of the world government are hidden deep within the sea. Basically, all the strongest people we see in One Piece have devil fruits, and this assures that Emu's wrongdoings would never come to light. Except for Lily's great mistake. According to Emu, she spread the poneglyphs far and wide throughout the world, and these poneglyphs, as we know, tell the ancient history. Emu believes that this mistake was planned by Lily and I'm assuming Joy Boy. The poneglyphs being scattered left a massive hole in Emu's plan, leading to them scrambling for the next 800 years to keep everything under wraps. I still don't know what capturing Vivi will do for them, but I'd assume it's to undo the so-called mistake Lily made. Maybe the female heirs of the Nefeltari family have an ability that can control the materials that the poneglyphs are made out of. We know that they're indestructible by normal means, but if Lily was able to scatter them all within a day, as Imu put it, she must have had an ability to do so. If Lily was able to scatter them, I think Imu's plan is to get Vivi to destroy them. Let's talk about this fucking masterful ass character design. The full body shot isn't as close as I'd like it to be, but it's more than enough to analyze. I'm a big weapons guy, being a Zoro fan, so I wanted to start with this weirdly shaped naginata they have. We've only seen 5 supreme grade blades over the course of the story out of the 12 total, but I believe we've just seen our 6th. A naginata is a polearm weapon that was typically used by female warriors of the noble class that first appeared in the Heian era. Yes, Jujutsu Kaisen fans, the Heian era was a real period of time, but was used throughout the Edo period as well. Although it was typically used by women, men wielded the weapon as well, and in One Piece we've only seen one other naginata, the Murakuma Giri wielded by the one and only Edward Nugget. Imu's naginata has a zigzag leading up to the signature curved blade at the top, with a jewel-looking piece at the end of the blade. The polearm has a wrap going all the way down it, with the end being a black cloud. This is definitely the sickest looking weapon we've seen in One Piece so far. It's harder to discern what clothes they're wearing, but to me it looks like they're just wearing pants with a cloak, but this spiral thing at the bottom was confusing me. I thought it was attached to the cloak, but I think it might be a tail or something similar that attaches to this arrow part in the back, because it looks like the arrows they use to kill Cobra, as well as demons and devils typically having a tail with an arrow at the end. But the most interesting part of Imu's design to me, and I know you noticed it too, is that they seem to have all the signs of a Lunarian. Well, we didn't see the black wings in their full body reveal, but right before that, when they first appeared on Elbaf and was still a shadow, they had some sort of wings here, so we'll just have to see if that was from the shadow form or if those are their wings. But the white hair and dark skin are there. I've seen some fan colors of the panel already, and I've seen some where their skin is red, but to me this shading looks like typical dark skin in One Piece, and I feel like red skin is too on the nose for what Oda would typically do. Yes, Imu is a demon and has used satanic iconography, but I think it's pretty clear that Imu wasn't always a demon and most likely lived a semi-normal life before they got their devil fruit. Imu being the first Lunarian we see after King would be really sick, and it would make sense why they would have Marijois built right where their former civilization lived. It makes me think that Imu became the ruler over all the other 20 kings because they were the most powerful one and no one could really even come close. Back to the actual design, they have dots and other markings covering their whole body. These dots are really throwing me for a loop because I don't know what they could be. They are covering their whole body head to toe, it seems, because we even see them going down their neck and chest and a bit up into their face in the portrait that we got to see in the chapter. The markings on their hands are the ones that we can see the best, but it's still pretty ambiguous to me. Imu uses marks and tattoos, as we've already seen, to bestow power to their subordinates, so I'd imagine these markings are connected to Imu's individual power as well. Now that I've talked about everything I could think of for Imu's reveal, I want to go over some ideas I have for the future of the Elbaf arc, and honestly the rest of One Piece. This reveal has really shortened how much time I thought we had left in the One Piece story. It seems that we are closer to the end times than I originally thought. I figured we had at least 7 to 8 years left, but it might be closer to 3 to 4, which is insane to even think about One Piece ending. Now as for Elbaf, I think the whole island's cooked, honestly. Egghead was left in a state of utter obliteration following the descent of the Gorosei and the naval buster call. So for Imu to be on Elbaf is an awful sign for its future. I agree with the overall sentiment that I've seen online that Imu has to establish themselves by catching a body. We all know Imu is top 1 in the verse, and honestly, if you think anything different, I'd assume you've been watching One Piece through 30-second clips on TikTok. But seeing Imu actually kill someone on screen in an Akainu-like fashion would really establish their dominance. But here's where I don't agree. Everyone wants them to kill a Straw Hat. I can't believe the amount of people I've been seeing say this. Like, do y'all not fuck with the crew? 1,179 chapters in? The main candidate that I've seen people say is Usopp, and honestly, it's just the most poorly disguised Usopp hate I've ever seen in my life. It's just lazy writing to have a Straw Hat die here, and it makes Luffy look like shit. He trained for 2 years straight, so he'd never have to see someone he loved die right in front of him again. So to make him fail at that would have made Luffy look terrible, and we all know Oda would never make Luffy look bad on purpose. Not to mention, it leaves so many plot points unanswered for any one of them to die. Naruto fans know where I'm about to go with this, but skip ahead to here if you haven't seen Naruto somehow. In the final war arc of Naruto, my absolute goat Neji basically just kills himself for no reason, and it was used as a way to grow Naruto and Hinata closer for their inevitable relationship. And everyone I've ever met who fucks with Naruto agrees that this shit was meaningless and unwarranted, especially when he had like 5 jutsus that could have saved him there, but whatever. Now I'm just pissing myself off talking about that dog shit. My point being, killing off characters without purpose is one of the worst things an author can do to his story, but especially a beloved character like any of the Straw Hats. The person I think Imu should kill, and how I see it, Oda has already set him up for a death scene in this arc, would be Scopper Gaban. I've been comparing this arc to Sabaody and calling it Sabaody Part 2 because I think Imu is going to mop the floor with everyone on Elbaf, and this will be like a soft reset moment for the series. On Sabaody, Rayleigh intervenes with Kizaru's plan to capture the Straw Hats, as well as Kuma using the last bit of his consciousness to save them. This time around, there's no Kuma to come in and save the day, but I think Gaban will try to step in similar to Rayleigh, but it's going to go south this time. It took Luffy 4 tries to beat Kaido, so I think it would be kind of crazy for him to just knock off Imu here, even if he's fighting with Loki or the entire crew. I just don't see it happening that way. I believe this arc will end with Luffy getting dominantly defeated by Imu, with the crew and even Loki helpless to do anything. After this happens, I think Imu will take Luffy back to Marijois with them, and it will turn into a Luffy rescue mission from there. This probably sounds crazy, and I'm not gonna lie, it kinda is, but I think this would be a really nice turn for the story, and reversing what happened after Sabaody. Luffy gets sent to Amazon Lily alone, and from there up until Return to Sabaody, Luffy is all alone, using only his personality and his ability to get people to help him with his cause. In this situation, it would be the Straw Hats as well as Loki going to Marijois to rescue Luffy. Loki will be an official Straw Hat. I would stake my life on it. I don't care what any of you have to say. This would lead to an all-out war occurring at Marijois because the Blackbeard pirates would be making their way there as soon as Lafitte, who's still at the port by the Red Line, sends the word that Imu is gone. As soon as word spreads that Luffy has been captured, everyone who's been captivated by Luffy at this point will pull up. Shanks didn't want that hat back from Luffy until he became the king of the pirates, but I'm sure he could put that aside when Luffy's life is in danger. The revolutionaries would definitely be there as well. Not only is Sabo not letting his brother die again, but Luffy is the only person Dragon has shown up to help ever. It's like literally the only time he's moved in the story is because of Luffy and because he was in danger, as well as him telling Kuma that their child is a father's biggest weakness. Even though it seems like Dragon doesn't do shit, If he still doesn't make a move on the world government while they have his son in custody, he's definitely a fraud. Yamato 100% would make his way out there, and it could be why he went on that pilgrimage that Oden went on as well. Even Boa Hancock would pull up. I don't think she'd ever let anyone lay a hand on that man if she had anything to say about it. The crew banding together to save their captain would be great development for everyone on that crew, because aside from Zoro and Sanji, everyone else needs to get stronger leading into a final fight for the world, basically. This would be a great time for a lot of them to unlock Haki, at least the fighters. It's ridiculous that Robin, Frankie, and Brook don't have any forms of Haki at all, and we're a Yonko crew. I think at the time of them leaving Elbaf to go rescue Luffy, they might start to realize that the world has progressed a lot since they've been on Elbaf. This is another idea of mine, but obviously the Lewis are not quote from earlier on in Elbaf has stuck in my head. Lewis are not was featured in Bragmen, a book of so-called tall tales, but actually turned out to be real, and the professors of Ohara knew as much as well because they had it in their library. In the book, he visits Little Garden and gives it the name Little Garden, saying it's because to the giants inhabiting the island, it truly is a little garden. This excerpt from his account of Little Garden is in chapter 115, and is the first and last mention of Lewis Arnott all the way up until chapter 1132. He also later on in his career visits Elbaf, and he says, "Adventurers, do not regret your time lost here. However, if there is one thing you take away from my account of Elbaf, let it be this word of warning. Do not overstay your welcome here." At first I took this as literally the giants not liking visitors staying too long in Elbaf, but I think this could be warning readers of the possible time dilation that occurs on Elbaf. He uses the word lost to refer to his time spent on Elbaf, seeming like his time spent there was more than he thought it was. Him saying don't overstay your welcome could be him actually warning travelers to not spend too much time there because it will be far more time than you imagined. The only human we've seen spend a long period of time on Elbaf is Gaban, and I can't say he looks much older than I thought he would, but it could affect you when you leave Elbaf instead of while you're still there. I think this would be the case because in chapter 1152, during Shanks and Gaban's conversation together, Gaban says, "It's been a while since we shared a good bath. What's it been, 3 or 4 years?" to Shanks, and Shanks says, "Are you kidding? Captain died 10 years ago." This lapse in his judgment of time fits the scale of giant lifespans from what we've been told. We were told they live 3 times longer than humans. They are expected to live around 300 years when humans only get to around 100. Gaban's guess of 3 to 4 years is about 3 times shorter than how long it's actually been since Roger's death at that point. What if instead of the giants living to 300, it's more like time is slower on Elbaf, so living 100 years on Elbaf is more like 300 years outside of Elbaf? If this is true, the One Piece world could be very different by the time they leave Elbaf, and that would be the perfect way to flip the story on its head. It really depends on how long Oda would decide the crew spent on Elbaf to determine how much time truly passed in the rest of the world, but this would be a good way to have Kobe catch up to Luffy in a more organic way, because how it looks right now, if Kobe doesn't get some Broken Devil fruit, which I don't think he would because he's supposed to be following in Garp's footsteps, he isn't anywhere near rivaling Luffy and won't be by the time the final war occurs. But if this time dilation happens, he could be a completely different man afterwards. This leaves so much opportunity for things to change while they're on Elbaf that I'm really starting to love the idea of this happening. It would be a genuine time skip from the Straw Hat's perspective, and depending on how it's done, it could be legendary. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. It means the world to me. This is the most fun I've had making a video ever, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a fella a like, you know what I'm saying? It's the least you could do. Maybe a subscription while you're already down there, you know, it only makes sense. Let me know how you felt about the things I talked about. Are they good ideas? Am I a fucking moron? I want to hear it all in the comments. Again, thank you for watching. Until next time.